Millions tuned in. The promos had been running for weeks. Jerseys flew off shelves. Headlines crowned him the next face of football. The NFL's golden ticket. Cleveland's salvation. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just a rookie. He was a movement, a walking headline, a living, breathing promise of change for a franchise that's fumbled more quarterbacks than footballs. And then, an hour before kickoff, benched. No warning. No explanation. Just silence and a clipboard. What followed was instant chaos. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Fans in the stands booing before the first snap. Viewership dropping like a rock. A 40% ratings collapse in prime time. Thousands leaving the stadium before halftime. Merch return spiking. Fantasy players scrambling. Sponsors furious. And the league? Humiliated. Because the Browns didn't just bench a player. They benched the reason people were watching. This wasn't strategy. This was sabotage. An ego-driven, power-playing, tone-deaf decision that betrayed not just Shedeur, but the locker room, the fans, and the future of the franchise. The NFL built a spotlight, and the Browns unplugged it. Now the damage is everywhere. Trust broken. Locker room fractured. Team morale in freefall. Coach Kevin Stefanski under fire. Ownership in panic mode. And Shedeur sitting in silence, poised, patient, and increasingly powerful with every second he doesn't speak. Because when he does, when he gets his shot, whether in Cleveland or not, it won't just be a comeback. It'll be a reckoning. This isn't about football anymore. It's about power, pride, and the moment a franchise lit its own future on fire. Welcome to the meltdown. This wasn't just a bad call. This wasn't a coaching decision or some innocent game time adjustment. What the Cleveland Browns did on that fateful Sunday night was something bigger. Something so tone-deaf, so brazenly short-sighted. It managed to shake the NFL to its core. And it all came down to one name, Shedeur Sanders. The rookie everyone was talking about. The future face of the franchise. The quarterback whose name was printed on banners, who was teased in commercials, featured in interviews, hyped by the league, and counted on to bring fresh energy to a stale franchise. Fans showed up in droves wearing his jersey. Kids painted his number on their cheeks. National broadcasters shifted schedules just to catch his first snap. And then they benched him. Not earlier in the week. Not after warm-ups. An hour before kickoff. Just like that, Shedeur went from centerpiece to ghost, with nothing but radio silence and confusion echoing across the league. And when fans realized what was happening, when the news broke that the most anticipated debut of the season had been shelved without explanation, they didn't just boo. They walked. Let's talk about the numbers for a second. Because the numbers, they don't lie. This game was projected to pull 11 million viewers, riding on the back of months of hype and the tantalizing mystery of what Shedeur could bring to the Browns offense. Instead, by halftime, viewership plummeted to 9 million, and by the fourth quarter, it had dipped below 7. That's a 40% collapse. For the NFL, that's DEFCON-level disaster. Network executives were scrambling. Sponsors were furious. Twitter, well, X, if we're being technical, imploded. Memes flew. Hashtags trended. One post summed it up perfectly. No Shedeur, no reason to watch. Because here's the thing. In 2025, star power is currency. And Shedeur Sanders? He was a currency. He was a product, the story, the hook. He was the reason people cared about the Browns this season. And in one cowardly, baffling, ego-driven decision, the team threw all that away like it meant nothing. And the result? It meant everything. Ticket sales dropped. Stadium morale tanked. Fans sat in their $600 seats, visibly fuming, scrolling on their phones while backup quarterbacks stumbled through 3-and-outs. The energy that was supposed to be electric turned embarrassed. And in the suites above it all, ownership had no idea what they had just detonated. Because make no mistake, this wasn't just about a quarterback not starting. This was a business collapse. Merchandise returns exploded. Viewers canceled game passes. Betting markets scrambled to adjust. Fantasy leagues imploded. One sportsbook reported a 17% spike in same-day withdrawal requests after Shedeur was ruled out. That's real money, real fallout. And the question that echoed through every sports desk in America that night, what were they thinking? Because here's the kicker, Shedeur was ready. He'd taken every rep that week with the first-team offense. He was locked in, sharp, leading huddles like a vet. Players were pumped. Coaches, well, some of them, were quietly optimistic. There was no injury, no scandal, no explanation, just a quiet last-minute reversal and then a vacuum of answers. And in that silence, chaos bloomed. Rumors started flying. Internal sabotage, front office interference, personality clashes, a power struggle between head coach Kevin Stefanski and the ownership group. Depending on who you believe, Stefanski either lost a political battle or folded under pressure. Either way, it was a decision that cost him everything. Let's be honest, coaches have survived losing seasons, even failed rebuilds. But what Stefanski just did, that's a betrayal on multiple levels. He didn't just bench a rookie. He benched a movement, a marketing campaign, a moment, and now he's lost a locker room. Fast. Insiders are already saying players are emotionally checked out. One unnamed defensive lineman reportedly said, "We practiced all week with Shedeur. Then they pulled him like it was a prank. We're not laughing." Yeah, that's not something you walk back with a post-game presser. Meanwhile, up in the executive suite, Jimmy Haslam is fuming, like red alert, flipping tables mad. Sources say he personally signed off on the league's preseason media blitz around Shedeur. His fingerprints are all over the branding. He was supposed to be the guy who brought excitement back to Cleveland. And now, after a humiliating national moment, the team he owns is being dragged into media like a minor league outfit. Fans aren't just mad. They're done. Season ticket holders are threatening boycotts. Local radio shows are taking calls from people demanding refunds. And the comments online? Let's just say it's not PG-rated. And through it all, Shedeur says nothing. No tweets. No stories. No passive-aggressive likes. Just silence. Which, honestly, is louder than anything he could have posted. But his camp? Oh, they're talking. Quietly. Off the record. And what they're saying is brutal. Blindsided. Betrayed, humiliated, apparently. Shedeur found out about the benching at the same time the public did. No warning, no heads up, not even the courtesy of a last minute, "We're making a change." Just erased. And his dad? You know who I'm talking about. Coach Prime has been watching. Deion Sanders hasn't said much yet. But when asked in a separate interview about how young stars should deal with betrayal in professional sports, he gave a smile, leaned in, and said, "Sometimes you gotta remind people who you are somewhere else. Somewhere else." And just like that, the temperature around the Shedeur situation went from simmering to scalding. Because now, the story isn't just about one game. It's about the future. Is Shedeur going to demand a trade? Is the league already eyeing potential teams that might scoop him up if Cleveland fumbles again? Will this turn into another cautionary tale of a star wasted by a team that couldn't get out of its own way? Because one thing is clear, the NFL needs Shedeur, not just for the on-field product, but for the entire ecosystem, for the ratings, the branding, the Gen Z fans who are more into players than teams, for fantasy, for social media, for the global stage. Shedeur Sanders is the new face of football. Even if Cleveland doesn't want to see it, everyone else already does. And if they keep sitting on him out of fear or ego or some warped idea of discipline, they're not just hurting themselves. They're hurting the league. Because fans today aren't patient. They don't wait around for stories to develop. They want stars. They want now. And if the NFL can't deliver on its own hype, fans will bounce. Ratings will dip. Dollars will evaporate. And the machine stops working. So what happens next? Honestly, we're in uncharted territory. Maybe the Browns wake up and fix this. Maybe Stefanski is forced out. Maybe Shedeur gets the start he deserves and rewrites the narrative in one breathtaking performance. That's the optimistic path. But the darker version? Shedeur stays benched. The team spirals. The locker room fractures. The media keeps dragging. And Shedeur, quiet, collected, surgical, walks into the front office in December and says, "I'm done here." And the league will explode. Because the day Shedeur Sanders leaves Cleveland is the day another team becomes a Super Bowl contender. Instantly. You think the Falcons wouldn't take him? The Raiders? The Patriots? The Saints? Please. Every struggling franchise will line up for a shot at redemption. And when it happens, Cleveland's decision to bench their future will become one of the most catastrophic PR failures in league history. So here's your question. Is it too late to fix this? And even if it's not, do the Browns deserve to? Sound off in the comments. Should Shedeur walk? Should the NFL step in? Or is this all one giant, flaming lesson in how not to handle your most valuable asset? Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the chaos, drama, and behind-the-scenes meltdowns you won't see on ESPN. Because if the Browns thought the story was over, they'd better tune in. The NFL just entered a Shedeur era, whether they like it or not. What happened that night wasn't just a ratings crash. It wasn't just another bad call from a team that's made plenty of them. It was a seismic shift, a wake-up call, a moment where the league's glitzy billion-dollar image came crashing headfirst into a decision so absurd, so self-sabotaging, it made fans, executives, and even rival players stop mid-sentence and go, "Wait, they're not playing Shedeur." Like what? This wasn't just some throwaway preseason drama. This was the NFL's most hyped rookie debut, the one the league itself had been marketing since before the draft. The kid whose last name literally trends every weekend. The quarterback with charisma, skill, swagger, and the built-in brand to make Cleveland matter again. And they bench him, without reason, without warning, without sense. Let's talk about the fallout. Because it didn't end with the TV ratings nosediving into the abyss. No, the effects of that decision are still rippling out. Like a bad penny tossed into the league's most delicate fountain, it's bouncing from locker rooms to boardrooms, shaking confidence, breaking trust, and yes, costing millions. Let's start with the fans. The ones who waited. The ones who bought jerseys, booked flights, paid for parking, told their kids this is history. All for a quarterback who never even suited up. You think those fans are coming back next week with the same energy? Absolutely not. They're exhausted, betrayed, not just by the benching, but by the complete silence that followed. There was no apology, no explanation, just that classic, vague NFL lingo. We made a decision in the best interest of the team. Let me translate that for you. We panicked, and now we're hiding behind cliches because we're too scared to admit we messed up. And the NFL? Yeah, they're panicking too. Because here's the dirty secret nobody in the league office wants to admit. Star power is the engine of the modern NFL. Not tradition, not systems, not even winning. It's names. Names that draw eyes. Faces that go viral. And Shedeur Sanders? He's that guy. He's not just a quarterback. He's a content machine. Every highlight clip is a reel. Every sideline interaction is meme-worthy. Every post-game quote is shareable. That's not a fluke. That's value. And the league knows it, which is why, behind the scenes, the NFL wasn't just disappointed by the benching. They were furious. You don't pour money into national ad campaigns, feature a rookie on everything from fantasy previews to YouTube shorts, and then just not play him. That's not just bad football. That's bad business. And in the NFL, business comes first. You think networks weren't fuming when the viewership tanked mid-game? You think sponsors didn't immediately call the league asking why the quarterback they signed off on as the next big thing was holding a clipboard? If you think this story ends with a few angry tweets and a Monday morning rant, you're dreaming. Because what happened in Cleveland was a breach of trust. Not just between team and fans, but between team and league. A franchise that asked for national coverage, begged for a primetime slot, and then yanked the rug out when the lights came on. And the league? They don't forget things like that. Now, let's get into the part nobody wants to touch, but everyone knows is real. This wasn't just about football. This was about control. Because Shedeur doesn't need to be made by the franchise. He came into the league built a name, a brand, a leader, and for some folks in that building, especially the ones who spent years tying their reputations to every mediocre quarterback they've cycled through, that's threatening. Imagine spending a decade trying to develop your guy, only for someone else's kid to walk in, command a room, and light up practice like he's already been here. That bruises egos. And when egos get bruised in the NFL, bad decisions follow. This wasn't about readiness. It wasn't about schemes or packages or game flow. This was a message, a flex, a power move meant to humble a rookie who, let's be honest, doesn't need to be humbled. He's already shown respect. He's already done the work. But apparently, that's not enough. Apparently, in Cleveland, being talented and confident is seen as a threat, especially if you don't let the team take credit for your shine. And now that decision is spiraling into full-blown crisis. Players are talking. The locker room is restless. Coaches are rattled. Ownership is furious. And Shedeur? Still, completely silent, which, ironically, is the loudest part of all this. He's not lashing out, not calling a press conference, not feeding the fire. He's letting the silence speak for itself. And honestly, that's the most devastating part, because it shows poise, discipline, maturity. It's the kind of maturity that makes the benching look even worse. The kind that says, I don't need to say a word. You're making my case for me. And you know who loves that? Every other franchise in the league. Because now Shedeur's name is on every GM's list. Quiet conversations are already happening. Scouts are reviewing old tape. Agents are fielding soft inquiries. Because if Cleveland doesn't want him, if they're really going to let this implode over pride, there are at least 10 teams ready to roll out the red carpet. Teams who know what a generational quarterback looks like. Teams who understand that star power is a gift, not a liability. Teams who would kill to have a player who's already got the locker room, the camera, and the clutch gene. And when not if that moment comes, when Shedeur puts on a different jersey, steps on the field and dominates, the Browns are going to look like the franchise that fumbled the future for the millionth time. And honestly, they'll deserve it. Because this isn't just about one game, one player, one bad call. This is about a pattern. A franchise that refuses to get out of its own way. That clings to outdated ideas of what leadership should look like. That still, somehow, can't recognize greatness when it's staring them in the face. Shedeur Sanders walked into Cleveland ready to change everything. And they benched him, not because he failed, but because they were afraid he wouldn't. So now the question is simple. What happens next? Does Shedeur stay quiet? Does he wait for the next game? The next injury? The next press conference where the head coach stammers through a new excuse? Or does he leave? Does he pull a move nobody's expecting and demand a trade? Does he make this the beginning of a new kind of quarterback era? One where players have the power, and franchises that don't respect to get left behind? Because if Shedeur Sanders walks away from Cleveland, the NFL doesn't lose a player. Cleveland loses a legacy. We're way past bad management or rookie growing pains. What happened with Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns is no longer a misunderstanding or a developmental strategy, or even some misguided attempt at discipline. No, we've crossed that line. Now we're in the realm of calculated suppression, and it's as clear as the empty seats that followed his benching. You can feel it, can't you? The tension, the awkward silences in press conferences, the uncomfortable glances from teammates when asked about the quarterback situation, the hollow statements from the coaching staff that somehow managed to say less with every word. It's all there, and whether the Browns want to admit it or not, they've created a storm, and they're stuck in the middle of it without an umbrella, without a plan, and without a single clue what they're doing next. Because here's the reality. The NFL needs stars, not system players, not faceless game managers. Stars. The kind of players who sell jerseys before ever taking a snap. The ones who turn a late-game drive into a viral moment. The ones whose names make casual fans sit up and say, "Wait, he's playing today?" Shedeur Sanders is that guy. He's already arrived. The Browns just didn't bother to open the door. And now they're locked out of their own future. Let's rewind just for a second. Go back to the offseason. The draft night. the endless debates on ESPN, the online hype machine running 24/7. Can Shedeur live up to the name? Is he NFL ready? What team will build around his leadership? And then, shockingly, perhaps fatefully, the Browns landed him. Suddenly, everything changed. The Cleveland Browns, a franchise infamous for quarterback disasters, had landed a generational talent. Not just a quarterback, but a narrative, a storyline, a chance to rewrite their legacy with a player who, for the first time in years, gave this team more than just hope. He gave them a face, a future. And then they did this? They benched him during a nationally televised game, no less. After weeks of promotional hype, thousands of new ticket holders, and literal millions tuning in to see Shedeur time, they decided, on a whim or maybe something worse, to yank the rug out from under everything. The trust, the momentum, the business. And trust me, make no mistake, this is business. This isn't just about stats or playbooks. It's about a player's marketability, being the core of the league's success. It's about fantasy football, jersey sales, youth engagement, and global reach. It's about relevance in a sports landscape where attention spans are measured in TikTok seconds and loyalty is fleeting. When the Browns benched Shedeur Sanders, they didn't just bench a rookie quarterback. They benched the reason millions of people cared. And the consequences? Oh, they're just getting started. Let's talk locker room. Because behind all the noise, the press, the TV spots, the boardroom fallout, there's a heartbeat of the team, the players, the guys who bleed for each other, who show up day after day, rep after rep, trying to build something. And when they saw Shedeur show up, work, earn respect, and then get humiliated, that changed the vibe. And in football, vibe is everything. The moment a locker room starts side-eyeing leadership, you've already lost. You think they're breaking down film? No, they're breaking down loyalty. Wondering if it's even worth it to trust a staff that operates like this. Wondering if they're next. Reports have already started leaking. Anonymous players talking about mixed messages, frustration, and loss of direction. That's code for, we don't believe in our coaches anymore. And why should they? When you bench a player like Shedeur, you're not just making a tactical call. You're sending a message. And the message the Browns sent that night was loud and clear. We're not ready for success if it comes from someone we can't control. And that's organizational cancer. Because once your players feel like winning isn't a priority, ego is. It's over. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the man himself. Shedeur Sanders, silenced by the headset, sitting stoically on the bench, watching the chaos he didn't cause but now finds himself trapped inside, not yelling, not rolling his eyes, not leaking stories to the press, just waiting. And you know what the league sees when they look at that? Poise. Real poise. Not the fake, PR-trained kind. The kind that says, you can't rattle me. You can't silence me. You can try to hold me back, but eventually you're going to have to let me loose. And when that moment comes, oh, it's going to be glorious. But here's the twist the Browns weren't ready for. That moment might not happen in Cleveland because patience runs out, even for the composed, even for the loyal, even for a guy who spent his life being doubted, proving people wrong, then doing it all over again. There's only so long you can sit on the sideline while less talented players bumble through 3-and-outs and wasted red zone trips before you say, nah, not like this. Sources close to the Sanders camp are already buzzing, not publicly yet, but the noise is growing. His father, Dion, might be silent for now, but let's not pretend he's not watching every second, every headline, every stat line. Let's not act like he hasn't already had those quiet conversations about what comes next if the disrespect keeps mounting. And what comes next could change the league. Because here's the reality no one wants to admit. Shedeur Sanders holds more leverage than most rookies will ever dream of. He doesn't need Cleveland. Cleveland needs him. He's a brand, a voice, a new generation athlete who already understands how to lead on and off the field. He has a fan base, the charisma, the numbers. He has options. And if the Browns keep mishandling this moment, that door doesn't just creak open. It gets kicked off the hinges. And the first team that walks through it, They win the lottery. Imagine him in Atlanta, bringing the Dion legacy full circle. Imagine him in Vegas, lighting up a market desperate for star power. Imagine him in New York, commanding headlines like only a Sanders could. All of it's possible, and all of it's on the table, because the Browns couldn't get out of their own way. This isn't just a bad call. This is a case study in self-destruction. It's what happens when old-school mentalities try to suppress a new-era athlete, when control outweighs creativity, when wait your turn is used as a weapon instead of a lesson. And the scariest part for Cleveland? There's still time to fix it, but that time is running out. They can start Shedeur next game, publicly admit they got it wrong. Let him lead. Let him grow. Let him win. But if they don't, they're not just losing a quarterback. They're losing the future. So let me leave you with this. What's worse, taking a chance on a young star and letting him shine, or burying him out of fear and watching him become a legend somewhere else? Drop your takes in the comments. Would you walk if you were Shedeur? Should the NFL hold Cleveland accountable for undermining their own marketing machine? Is this just another chapter in the league's long, messy history of mismanaging talent? Let's hear it. And of course, subscribe, because we'll be here every week unpacking the drama, decoding the damage, and keeping the receipts. The NFL thought this was just a game. Turns out it's a reckoning.